Here.
Mr. Metcalf?
Here.
Mr. Paul?
Here.
Mr. Bonagna?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
All members of council are here and accounted for. Mr. Davis.
Yes, Your Honor, I move that the minutes of December 9, 2014 and December 16, 2014 be accepted as written.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that the minutes of December 9th, 2014 and December 16th, 2014 be accepted as written. Roll call.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Berthold?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Bonagna?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
So moved. Minutes accepted. Petitions and communications, Madam Clerk.
Yes, I have a letter from the Department of Commerce dated December 31st, 2014, regarding new permit application, permit number 0496263-005, Class 5, Basics Lounge LLC, 505 Nelson Avenue, Steubenville, Ohio 43952. Notice of hearing regarding new permit application pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 4303.26. The Division of Liquor Control will conduct a hearing upon the advisability of the issuance of the above permit. The objection was filed and hearing requested by the following authority and/or institution: Steubenville City Council. This hearing is scheduled for January 20th, 2015 at 1 p.m. at the Jefferson County Department of Job and Family Services at 125 South 5th Street, 2nd floor, Steubenville. This hearing will be conducted by video conference. When you arrive, please check in with the receptionist and have her page Sharon Smith. Mr. Smith will escort you to the video conference room. The prosecuting attorney or a designated assistant prosecuting attorney.
Madam Clerk, would you please wait? Mr. DiLoretto.
I'll turn it off.
Thank you, Mr. DiLoretto.
I'm sorry.
And I would like to remind anybody that they have a cell phone to please place it in the off position or vibrating position. Madam Clerk, please continue.
The prosecuting attorney or a designated assistant prosecuting attorney of the county shall represent the county or any township located within the county in any hearing or appeal under this section or section 4303.271 of the revised code in which the county or township is a party. The chief legal officer or a designated assistant legal officer of the municipal corporation shall represent it in any hearing under either section. Shall, as used herein, is mandatory, not merely directed. The objecting legislative authority or institution must have designated witnesses present at the hearing.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
The objecting legislative authority or institution must have designated witnesses present at the hearing to give pertinent testimony regarding the advisability of the issuance or transfer of the captioned permit. The chief law enforcement officer of the political subdivision or his designated representative may also appear and give testimony. The applicant may appear alone or with legal counsel or with other witnesses to give pertinent testimony on his behalf. All inquiries regarding this matter should be directed to the legal section at 614-644-2489. Sincerely, James P. Bailey, Attorney, Legal Section.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Your Honor, I make a motion that we accept that letter and give a copy to the city manager and the law director and council.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that the communication received, file made, part of minutes referred to the city manager, the law director, and the members of council. Roll call.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Berthold?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Bonagna?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
So moved. Communications accepted. Other communications and petitions, Madam Clerk.
None this evening.
Mr. Davis. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. We're running table. Ordinance number, we will move into the ordinances and resolution. Ordinance number 2014-146. Mr. Metcalf.
Yes, Your Honor, at this time, I make a motion that ordinance number 2014-146 be put on the table, please.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and seconded that ordinance number 2014-146 be tabled. Roll call.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Berthold?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Bonagna?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
So moved. Ordinance number 2014-146 is tabled. If it's removed from table, it will be scheduled for its second reading at that time. Ordinance number 2014-147 by the Building and Grounds Committee, Ms. Curdahl, Mr. Paul, Mr. Johnson, for its second reading.
Ordinance number 2014-147, an ordinance vacating a 20-foot alley and 10-foot utility alley which lies between North 7th Street and North 8th Street.
Here is the second reading of ordinance number 2014-147. The third and final reading will be scheduled 2 weeks hence on January 20th, 2015. Ordinance number 2014-148 as amended for its second reading.
Ordinance number 2014-148 as amended, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to advertise for requests for proposals and qualifications from marketing and community branding firms with the right to accept the best proposal and enter into an agreement.
Here is the second reading of ordinance number 2014-148 as amended. Its third and final reading is going to be scheduled for January 20th. And as everyone is noted, the very last line in the caption in declaring an emergency is eliminated. That's why it's amended. We will now move on to ordinance number 2015-1. And I do want to question this. This states under the Building and Grounds Committee. I believe it should be under the Service or Finance Committee. This is a change in the table of organization, and I believe this is reflecting the custodian's position. That should come from Finance or Service, not Building and Grounds.
This committee also should, or this ordinance should also have come out in a reading form on an emergency. Oh, okay.
It won't receive the required amount of votes for passage.
I will read the way it is.
Would the council like to leave it under Building and Grounds or move the committee?
Should be.
Well,
You okay, move to finance? You make the motion to move to finance. Yeah. I'll second her motion.
okay. Ordinance number 2015-1 by the Finance Committee, Mr. Metcalf, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson.
Ordinance number 2015-1, and ordinance amending ordinance number 2014-75, the existing table of organization of the city of Steubenville and declaring an emergency.
You heard the reading of ordinance number 2015-1. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please go forward, state their name and address. Okay, Mr. Bill Mack.
What are we doing with this? Because I'm confused now. We bring it says it's an emergency here. Now we say it's not an emergency, and we're going to table it, or we're going to vote on this, or what are we going to do?
The only request I was making is that it was under the Building and Grounds Committee, which is the, not the appropriate committee. They could bring it in. We changed it to the Finance Committee. The ordinance stands with the emergency clause in it. If it doesn't receive the required amount of 5 votes, then it receives its first reading. That's the charter amendments, that's the way
We're
it's
all going to
stated.
vote no. and then-
Vote no.
That's what I want to find out.
Because if we're not, I had something to say about it. Okay.
Well, that's why I'm asking for comments. Is there any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2015-1? Roll call.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Now, this is the emergency, right?
No, then you don't vote on the emergency, you're voting on the ordinance. If it does not receive the required amount of votes, 5, then it will go to its first reading.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Ms. Kurzdahl? No. Mr. Metcalf?
No.
Mr. Paul?
Nope.
Mr. Villamagna?
No.
Mr. Davis?
No.
Very good.
So moved. Ordinance number 2015-1 did not receive the required amount of votes to pass as an emergency. So this evening it received its first reading. And 2 weeks hence, on January 20th, it will receive its second reading. The third and final reading will be scheduled for February 3rd. And it will be as Sponsoring legislation is by the Finance Committee. Ordinance number 2015-2 by the Public Utility Committee, Mr. Makeup, Mr. Fioretto, Ms. Girdle.
Ordinance number 2015-2, ordinance authorizing and directing the finance director to establish specific uses for the sanitation fund 52 and declaring an emergency.
You heard the reading of ordinance number 2015-2. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please come forward, state your name and address. No, members of council, Mr. Bill Mack.
Yes, I'd like an explanation as to why that's an emergency ordinance for the sanitation fund.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Magna. Mr. Bowman?
Thank you, Your Honor. We discussed in the committee, this would, changing the items that can be funded out of the sanitation fund. I know we've had a number of discussions about the street sweeper. You can't purchase that until we do this ordinance. Going from 5-day pickup to 4-day pickup, implementing that so that on the 4th day or on the 5th day, we can have those staff working on items that are listed here. Again, we can't do that until this ordinance is passed. Otherwise, it would have to come out of general fund, and the general fund could not absorb that. So that, as I recall, was the reason we have this listed as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Magna, follow up.
The sanitation fund's an enterprise fund, is that right? Okay, so there's only certain things that can be done out of there no matter how you look at it anyway. So that's what I don't understand why we have an emergency ordinance. Because we're either allowed to take it out of there or we're not allowed to take these things out of there. If I understand how an enterprise fund works, you're only allowed to do certain things with it. So why is there an emergency ordinance to allow us to do something that we're allowed to do?
I think Councilman Bill Magna, it is in how the fund, when it was established, what we said we could do out of the fund at that time. When you look at it from an audit standpoint, certainly the fund can be used for these things. That's why it's being proposed that way. But if we don't explicitly call that out and define that, I would assume that we would have some potential audit issues with that. It's not clear that we can do, that we have said we would do these things out of that fund. So that, I think that's the clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Magna. Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Metcalf.
Yes, Your Honor, to get some further elaboration from Tim as well. We had meetings with the SRG. One of the goals has been cleaning up the town, cleaning up downtown as well too. The streets are in need of real good cleaning. The current street sweeper is like dead, dying, gone, done, pretty much. Okay. This will allow you to get a new street sweeper and help clean up the streets of our town and make our downtown especially look a lot better. Now, I think the question is the time. You know, by doing this under emergency, it allows you the ability to get this street sweeper in quicker so we can, as winter would break, this will be available in spring. If we didn't do it under emergency, my guess is this thing would not be available until late April or May. Am I correct? So that's the intent of administration for us, for this council, in helping cleaning up the streets that the citizens want.
Right, that's absolutely correct. It would be, I don't know, it would be much later in the second quarter or even the third quarter because the ordering of a piece of equipment of that size and that complexity. What this enables us to do, and I was in my weekly meeting with Director Baird, if this goes forward as proposed, my hope, and I think we'll be able to hang our hat on it, is that we would be able to go back to weekly street sweeping in the central business district. I was pushing for March 1st, but I think it would be more like April 1st at this point. But at that point, we should be back on a weekly schedule, and I think that will make a significant impact in our central business.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2015-2? Mr. Diaretta.
Yeah, Mr. Bull, I don't answer right now, but I want to know what we're going to pick up with the bulk pickup, the recycling. The JV Green Team is here, and they want some more money. I want to know what we're going to do, what they're going to do, so that we don't double tax our constituents. Number two, what is your plans on going to the 4-day wood schedule? Because I got a lot of grass to cut south end. Sometimes I no longer counted as poor. Thank you.
I can, Your Honor, I can make some brief comments in response. With the solid waste plan as proposed, the revised plan, it added
Changing all the time.
the ability to consider, and quite frankly, it was our suggestion that we have a bulk pickup in there and that the green team support that at some level in the future. That would be a board decision, but I do feel positive that at least that is explicitly stated now in the draft plan if that gets passed. As for the 5 days to 4, again, I've been talking with Director Baird. We want to accelerate that. I've asked him to outline specific tasks that staff will be doing on that 5th day. What we'll be doing, where we'll be doing it, what's the impact and the impact on the budget. So I know he's working on that because we want to get as much, for this to be successful, if we go from 5 to 4, we really need to be productive on that 5th day.
Efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a better word. And so he's well aware of that, and I'm confident we'll have a robust plan of action for that 5th day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Thank you, Mr. Diaretta. Any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2015-2? Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not certain that this is an emergency. I wish we would get away from the emergencies and utilize the charter provision where we could waive having 3 readings, vote on the ordinance, and in 30 days the ordinance becomes effective. That could speed us up on some of this and avoid the emergencies. Because the emergency provision by the state law is only for the preservation of the public protection, health, and safety. So I would, hopefully going forward, we do less emergencies, and on time-sensitive ones like Mike's construction projects, maybe we invoke that change in the charter and vote on it that way and waive the 3 readings.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other member of council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2015-2? Roll call.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Is this what, emergency?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Ms. Kershaw?
Yes.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
No.
Mr. Villamagna?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2015-2 failed to receive a required amount of votes for passage under emergency, so ordinance number 2015-2 received its first reading. The second reading will be scheduled 2 weeks hence on January 20th, and the third and final reading will be scheduled for February 3rd. Ordinance number 2015-3 by the Finance Committee, Mr. Metcalf, Mr. Davis, Mr. Johnson.
Ordinance number 2015-3, an ordinance authorizing and directing the approval of expenditures without a purchase order over $3,000 pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.41 and declaring an emergency.
You heard the reading of ordinance number 2015-3. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please come forward, state your name and address. Not members council. Mr. Bill Nagy.
I'd like an explanation on the Trident insurance claim and also the Juice Technology, what those two were for.
Well, Trident, just go back some time. Trident, if a claim comes in from an insurance company, typically, you don't know that claim is coming. I don't know all the details on this $4,000 some expenditure. I could look into it for you.
We have the invoice attached to the ordinance. It was for Douglas Doyle, claim damage. I believe that was water damage.
So when we get notification that we need to pay this claim, usually the invoice comes. We don't typically encumber that type of dollar amount for an insurance settlement that we don't know we're going to get. So it's not like somebody went out and bought anything. This was an insurance claim that came in and we paid it.
Because I was under the impression with the Trident Insurance Company that guy came before council and said that the insurance turned him down. Not the insurance.
The homeowners, Mr. Rappel.
It's my understanding that the homeowners did pay. They may have initially, well, I think the city we may have initially turned them down or sent them to the claims adjuster for Trident. Trident's claim adjuster may have initially turned them down, but then the insurance company reconsidered and paid. And then we have a deductible, so that would be that would be the deductible that we pay right there.
And Juice Technology.
You have the invoice on you.
Is that Bud Smart?
I think that's a contract.
Bud Smart.
It might be a contract we're in.
Citywide lighting and temporary, as an abbreviation, and this would be for,
I don't have it on there.
Citywide lighting and thermostat
yeah.
control.
Your Honor, if I could.
Go right ahead.
If I
That's
could.
why I gave it to you.
This is a invoice, Juice Technology LLC, City of Steubenville, meeting with Stacy Williams, PlugSmart, providing the City of Steubenville 3 years of the PlugSmart analytics for that amount, $3571.56, with the first PSA report to be delivered fourth quarter of 2014. So, expand on that a little bit.
I don't know a whole lot about it. It sounds like some type of contract that someone got into. Must not have got the purchase in time. So that's just to cover the contract that was signed. Must have been signed.
Thanks.
So my final question is, I don't even know if I need an answer after hearing the last two, but Alfred Automotive Group, 7/23/14, 7/15/14, 8/27/14 for Neptune, 8/29 for Neptune. These bills haven't been paid since July and August, and we have two bills on it that we don't really know what they're for. And we're voting for this for an emergency.
And we talked about it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, all members
I
council
think we talked about this
received the
month ago.
invoices in the detail on it. That's why I just gave it to the city manager. Anything else, Mr. President?
No.
Is there any other member council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2015-3?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Johnson.
Have these bills been paid? Or is this just a administrative procedure we're doing
I believe this is just an administrative procedure after the fact.
after the fact?
Yeah,
Bills have already been paid.
They're already paid. But anything over 3,000. of course,
Right, we have to
you guys-
authorize it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other member council wishing to speak on ordinance number 2015-3? Roll call.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Johnson?
No.
Ms. Kurtall? Aye. Mr. Metcalf? Mr. Paul?
No.
Mr. Villamagna?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
So moved. Ordinance number 2015-3 did not receive the required amount of votes to pass as an emergency, so will be amended. It received its first reading this evening. It will receive its second reading 2 weeks hence on January 20th. The third and final reading will be February 3rd. Yeah, I will say that I'm pretty sure the bill has been paid. I agree with that. However, the state auditors, if you can recall, when this is forward to the clerk, wanted this included in 14 and not reflected 15. But-
Your Honor.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, these bills have been paid, and again, I think we discussed it in our finance committee meeting, and this is when items such as this are paid over 3,000, then and now. We're accustomed to handling these in this manner. I was kind of pleased with the way this legislation was. We, as you know, have had multiple page ordinances with then and nows, and we're down to an ordinance with 6. So I don't know. I felt we were moving in the right direction with these. It is a procedural item. Bills have been paid. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Mr. Davis?
Yeah, and I want to confirm what Tim just said. We did discuss this in the last finance committee meeting, and I believe, Mr. Johnson, it might have been you that even said, well, at least we're down to this many, because it had been in the past, so many of them. I will reiterate what Mike Johnson said earlier. Whoever writes the ordinances from now on, please, instead of the emergency ordinance, make sure that we put that new part of the charter in there, that we waive, yes, you waive the 3 readings, and it can be done today. It would still take 30 days to become law. At least that would save us those 3 or 4 more weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. That will conclude the ordinances before City Council this evening. We will now move into the report of committees, and we'll start off with Mr. Diaretta.
First of all, I want to apologize for my phone going off. I don't get too many telephone calls, so plus I can't use it very well. I hope the year 2015 is very successful. I'm looking forward to not too many meetings, short meetings, and a lot of work accomplished in a short amount of time. I want time on task. I want to get things done, and I want to get them done fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diaretta. We'll continue on under committee reports to Mr. Johnson.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Kurtall.
No report, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kurtall. Mr. Metcalf.
Yes, Your Honor, just a motion, our law director and our city manager wants an executive session, sending a motion for that, or second to my motion. First will be union negotiations dealing with the fire department, and a second will be personnel discussing the hiring or potential hiring of a new water superintendent, and also what's going on with the hiring of our new finance director.
Second.
It's been regularly moved and second. Following that, the City Council move into an executive session for the purposes of union negotiation update with firefighters and personnel, both in water and finance. Roll call.
Mr. Dillaretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Kurtall? Aye. Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
So moved. City Council will move into an executive session immediately following public forum. Anything further, Mr. Metcalf? Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Paul?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know, I think Mr. Metcalf has a finance committee meeting next week. Is there something open on the 27th or the 20th? I would like to have a safety committee meeting, discussion of feral cats. Also, I know that you would send a letter to the commissioners, and I spoke with one commissioner, and he had a couple items that he sent back to you, and I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And please put that on the agenda, and we're going to have it on the 27th then?
On
Okay.
the 20th, we have a utility committee meeting. The 27th, there's nothing scheduled.
Okay. Can I have a safety committee meeting then for that day, please?
27th, at what time?
Let's do it at 6.
6 p.m.,
Yes.
January 27th, safety committee. And the clerk will facilitate the proper notices to the public media. Anything further, Mr. Paul?
No, sir, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. We'll continue on to Mr. Bill Magna.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bill Magna. Mr. Davis.
Yes, Your Honor, please. Out of the Park and Rec Committee, it's been a while. Park and Rec's been off for a couple of months because of the holidays, did not meet in December, January. So next Wednesday, January 14th at 7 p.m. at the Martin Luther King Rec Center. It's a change of venue. We usually meet at the pool house up there, but we're going to go to the Martin Luther King Center on January 14th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. That will conclude the report of committees from the members of council. We will now move into the report of the administrative officers, and we'll start off with our city manager, Mr. Bowler.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm pleased to turn the floor over to our guest from Southern Cross. I know the other gentleman, but I know Mr. John Cooper, who is before you this evening. All of you should have a report on the proposed demolition of our water tower on John Scott Highway and replacing it with a clock tower. So with that, Mr. Cooper, if you could explain that project a little bit more, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Sure, I'd be happy to. First of all, I'd like to thank the council for taking the time to allow me to speak on behalf of this project. Basically, what's happening out there is you have a water tank that is in pretty severe condition. As a result, it's been removed from service. This is probably something that everybody is well aware of. What we're going to do is we're going to remove that water tank because as what it's being used for right now, in addition to what it was originally built for, is a cellular carrier facility. I don't know if you've been out there recently, but there's a lot of little buildings out there, and there's antennas that are surrounding the Capitol that walks around the bowl. What's going to happen is when that tank comes down, those folks that are up there are going to be displaced. So rather than them have to build another tower, which you have three carriers up there now. One is Cricket, one is AT&T, one is Sprint. AT&T has purchased Leap, which is Cricket, so they're combining their efforts. So there's really two up there right now, Sprint and AT&T, major cellular carriers. There's a few other smaller antennas, and we're working through that with folks on those antennas. In any event, once that tank comes down, we're going to put up another structure, and we wanted to do a structure that was going to be pleasing. So we thought in this particular area with the school there, and it being up on top of that hill, clock tower would fit in nicely. This pamphlet that everybody has, and if anybody does not have one and wants one, I have a few extras here, and I'll be happy to share them with whoever wants them. It basically outlines what it is that we're going to do there in terms of the actual demolition. Obviously, there's some connection back to the water system. We're going to make sure that that is sufficiently capped. I have with me, I have the engineer's design for the capping that's in this manual. I also have a construction manager that's been doing this for years and years, and of course, I have the president of Southern Cross Communications here with me as well. So any questions about anything that's in here, I'll be happy to answer for you. But just to briefly go through this a little bit, not in too great a detail, it basically shows the type of structure that we're going to put up there. It can be colored the school colors because it's on the school property. It will have multiple levels for putting carriers on. And it basically is going to be a much better looking project than what you currently have there. There's been some work done on that water tank, just so that everybody is aware. You're talking in the neighborhood of $500,000 to rehab that tank, to take the tank down significantly less. We're going to do that as part of our project. It's not going to cost the city anything. The capping of the water line, we're going to do that too. That's also going to be part of the project. So at the end of the day, your tank will be down, it won't cost you anything. We'll remediate whatever is out there in terms of lead-based paint or any other issue that may be out there, because we'll have a full-blown phase 1 done on the site, and we will make sure that it is clean. Once we put the new tank, or the new clock tower up, the antennas will be behind the panels, you won't even see them. And of course, we'll fence it the way it's currently fenced. Maybe we'll add a few trees if we need to add a few trees. And that's really the whole project right there in a nutshell. The only thing that we would like to do is we would like to start the project as quickly as we possibly can. I don't know how many readings I would have to go through or what needs to be done in order to kind of push this along, but because of the current condition of the tank, it might be a good idea that we start on it pretty quickly. So we've got the contractor lined up that's going to do the removal. That's what they do. That is their forte, and they're basically waiting for me just to pull the trigger. Of course, the city will be insured. They'll be indemnified by them and by us. We will provide the necessary certificates of insurance for that.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Are there any questions from the members of council? Mr. Bill Mack.
Yeah, Mr. Cooper, who's the demo company?
Eisler.
Iceland.
And by the way, this was the same company. I believe that there was a request that went out for proposal some time ago, and Eisler was the selected winner. We actually went back to them, and they came in with the best numbers again, out of 5. So,
Are they here? Anybody from Iceberg here right now?
no, sir.
Mr. Rappel.
If I may add to that, I believe Mike asked for some bids some time ago.
From Joe Bressler.
Yeah, this project probably started back in, the previous city managers commission needed to do this back in August of 2012. And I remember the first meeting with John when I told him he had to get his antennas down in 30 days. He wasn't happy, but anyways, we did get some pricing. The project was put on hold a little bit. Actually, Eisler was the quote that I received. I think they're out of Missouri. Michigan area. Back then, the price was somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000, and that did not include any engineering or any environmental issues. That would probably be some design work on top of that.
That's correct.
And then it didn't include any capping of the water line as well, which that needs to be done.
That is also correct.
So this project has been on the table since it's got the job number 2012-140.
And it should also be understood too that obviously Eisler is going to scrap the water tower. So even taking into consideration the value of the scrap that they're going to get, the city, we were still looking at close to $30,000 out of our pocket to tear that down. Whereas Mr. Cooper, Southern Cross is going to come in and we're not going to be charged anything. And as you all can remember, that tank is on a leased piece of property where our lease is up. It was originally with the county, and then the county sold that property to the college. So our lease is up. We got to get it out of there, and that's what brings us here today. And then the other important point is that the college has been pressing Southern Cross because they would like to have that clock tower up and functional before the May commencement for the college out there too. So that's one of the reasons why we're here today too.
We also did research the new tower out there on EGCC property is a 1 million gallon tank, and this current tank is 300, this old tank is 350,000 gallons. And when we were doing the design work back in 2001, we determined that the 1 million gallon tank was sufficient, and when the 350,000 gallon tank needed an extensive amount of work, and right now he's close to the figure, $500,000 to bring it back to what it would need to be, it would be decommissioned and taken out of service.
Scrap price alone is probably very much right now. So the window of opportunity is excellent to take it down now for a scrap price alone, correct?
I don't know what scrap prices are going
It's
to.
high.
That would be
It's very
awesome.
high. Because I work in a steel mill, and we're taking a lot of buildings down right now, and they are getting paid through the scrap that they're generating. So it's really nothing that Harshman Middle was paying those people, so they're making all the money by taking this down. Are you putting up a clock tower, or are you putting up on the back page, it looks like some kind of portable tower?
Yes, those, what you're looking at in the back page is what's called a cowl. It's a cell on wheels. And what we're going to have to do is when we remove those antennas from service as a result of the tank coming down, there's going to have to be a temporary solution put in place for the carriers. Each one of those carriers will have their own cowl. It's just a temporary solution. They're 100 feet tall, and they are on wheels, so they will be backed in there, and they will be backed out whenever they're removed. The existing power and telephone that they currently are using will be extended to be able to service these. The antennas will be on that existing mast. That is a crank-up mast. Sometimes they're crank-up mast, sometimes they're hydraulic, but in any event, what it is it'll be a mast that is extendable.
What is the height of the water tower now?
150 feet.
And what will be our clock tower?
130 feet. It'll be 4-foot lightning rod on top, so but it'll look like a pin on the
I
top.
won't say 6:30 all the time, will it?
If you wanted to,
Well, it's
say whatever
every
you want to
picture
say.
from every angle is 6:30. I just wanted to know.
This tower right here, I'm responsible for the location of this tower right here. This tower was actually built by another company that I worked with. It's a really a nice, it's a nice structure. It's on the Homestead Cog property. I don't know if you're familiar with the Homestead down there in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yes.
Well, Ann Lewis and I worked together on this very closely. It was originally slated to be a different type of structure, and I actually went in and told them that this would be nicer. And it was. They like it a lot better. So this is not our first time that we've done one of these. I've actually done this already once.
Mr. Metcalf.
Couple questions here. First of all, project start to project finish, timetable.
Well, it really depends on a couple of wild cards. One of them is going to be the NEPA and the SHPA. One is going to be whatever it takes to get through that. That typically takes about 60 to 90 days. Concurrently with that, you've got our FAA studies, which run anywhere from 45 to 60 days. You've got your phase ones that have to be done, which will also be done within the same time that we're waiting on the NEPA and the SHPAs to come back. If we've already started the survey. I've already got drawings that have gone to Chris to work through with him on the conditional use permit. But to answer your question more directly, our goal is to have this thing up in the air by May the 1st. Can I do that? I'm really going to have to hustle. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? It looks like I may be out 15 days or so beyond the 1st. I think this is doable, but I need the support to be able to say we have the flexibility to start on it a little bit quicker. I don't want to belabor anything, but the guy, Mr. Bressler, I forget his name. Bressler. He actually was in that water tank, and it's pretty bad. It's rusting. You can see daylight coming in holes the size of golf balls, the size of baseballs. So, is there any risk? I don't know. I don't think so, but do we need to get it down? I would say so.
Okay. Second question is more administrative, Tim. What is required of this council? What do we need to do?
Accountability, what we get.
If I can
Defer to
answer,
that.
if I, John is going to get me a contract between Southern Cross and the city, and a contract he's going to state what he's going to do and put out his insurances and state that we're not getting charged anything. And then, so we need an ordinance.
Authorizing the city manager.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into the contract, preferably an emergency ordinance. I'd like to sunshine it next week and get it passed on the 20th. And then that way it keeps them on schedule, it keeps the college happy. I think there's some other motives why they want to get this done before then that we won't discuss right now, but I think, John, how long would be you, Mike, and Tim for the last 30 days? We numerous times and have numerous conversations.
Yes.
And
Your Honor, I have to tell you that these guys have always been, when I call them, they're there. If I email them, they email me back. They've really, it's been a pleasure to work with these guys. So.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. That's good to hear, and we know that. Sometimes we may not express that, but we know the hard work that the administration is doing. I do want to remind the members of council that without a doubt, this is an eyesore leading into one of our highest volume retail centers. Dr. Meeks and I had many conversations when I was the acting city manager, and I ordered that tank out of commission. In fact, if you can recall, once we did put that in no service and did not fill the tank, we experienced all kinds of water line breaks throughout our community, especially in the Buena Vista area where we spent quite a bit of time. To me, this is a golden opportunity for the city to get rid of one of the eyesores. I know the feelings, especially after tonight's council meeting, about moving forward aggressively with legislation. However, I think this one warrants it. There's other values that will come along with this tower, let alone relieving the city of a liability. I do want to say that in fact, at the site, I'm the one that asked the city engineer to get a hold of Nick Bressler from World International Testing, who crawled up and went inside the tank the same day for us. But because of that liability, there has always been a fear of other things happening, but more so the cost of it. When World International Testing indicated the $30,000 or so to do the demolition, did not include any of the environmental studies, the phase 1 studies and all environmental studies to it. And I, from regional planning, could assure you the minimum of that will be $10,000 to $15,000 on top of the demolition. And that price of $30,000 was the scrapping of the value of the steel within the structure. So I think this is an opportunity, and I want to thank Southern Cross, Mr. Cooper, for advancing this thought, and to the really the Eastern Gateway Community College, because I do know that Dr. Meeks was very concerned last year in 2013 about the appearance of that being on their property also. So thank you. Any other comments or questions from the members of council? Mr. Violetta.
How about making the light illuminate all night long?
The light?
Yeah, the clock.
Well, we were actually just talking about that the other day.
Suggestion.
We're not sure how we wanted to do that. There's a couple of ways to skin the cat. Yes, we could do that, shine lights from the bottom and make it look aesthetic, or we can put a tray of LED lights around it so that it stays lit.
We have a curfew here in town.
You also do solar power on top of the roof.
Well,
we solar powered stoplight.
We could do that. What we don't want to do is put too much stuff on the roof, because we don't want to detract from the actual appearance of the roof.
Thank you.
Yep. But we can do whatever.
Any other members of council have questions, concerns? Mr. Ball, still under administrative report.
I have nothing else, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. I entrust that City Council will appropriately move forward with this project, and we'll be back in touch with you.
If I could ask, what committee will we discuss this under to bring it out of the committee?
Well, I was going to say building and grounds, but it's not really our grounds. It's not really a utility.
Oh, yeah, it's utility.
Okay.
You guys agree to take it to somebody out of utility, introduce something next week?
Get the legislation to Frankie and place. Maybe we'll burn it out.
And Mr. Rapella, I will also ask you, in between time next week, they bring in the legislation, if you would consider if it to be an ordinance or possibly a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into the contract. We don't own the land, there's no cost, no dollars attached to it, and that might be more of a comfort level for the members of council to adopt by roll call a resolution authorizing the city manager, but reflect on that until next Tuesday. With that, thank you, Mr. Bowman. We'll move on to our law director, Mr. Rapella.
The only report that I have, Your Honor, is I have been in contact with the Ohio BCI, their lead investigator, Charlie Snyder, in regards to the theft of the monies from our finance department. He has the investigative report, and he will be seeing, probably within the next few weeks, our county prosecutor and taking that report and discussing it with the prosecutor. I've also contacted the city's insurance company, and we could collect that from our insurance company probably immediately, but I prefer to wait. I would rather that we get the money directly from the person responsible, if that's going to be possible. In that way, I think it just in case the insurance rates would go up for a claim, because I don't believe we've had a claim in a long time, in regards to theft here. So, just to tell you, I'll keep on monitoring the situation, and hopefully for the next few weeks I'll be able to report back to you after I talk to the county prosecutor and the investigator. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Rapella, and once again, I'd like to thank the department heads for attending tonight's council meeting. No one signing in under miscellaneous. Okay. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor. One thing under miscellaneous, I would like to make a motion, if I could, for council to approve the mayor's appointee, David Snelty, to the unexpired term of Eric Exley. The term will expire on September 2016. That is to the Board of Commissions appointments. Planning. Right. Planning and zoning, I will find it there, yes. So Dave Snelly to the Planning and Zoning Committee, term to expire September 16th. By council as a whole, by roll call.
Second.
It's been ready moved and second that Mr. Dave Snowden of 1718 Hamilton Place, term to expire September 2016, be appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Roll call.
Mr. DiLoretto?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Kurtolo?
Aye.
Mr. Metcalf?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Romagno?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
So moved, motion carried. Once again, I would like to thank the members of City Council for approving the recommendations of my office. With that will complete the miscellaneous reports from the members of council. We will now move into public forum. Is there anyone wishing to speak to City Council on city business? Please go forward, state your name and address.
It's on.
It should be a good thing.
William Isaac, 2nd Ward, 389 Los Angeles. Concerning the Ohio Department of Liquor Control, that's my issue I want to speak with today. That hearing on January the 24th, job of pantry service, you might want to anticipate the public showing up to I understand that the public not offer any testimony at this hearing, but the hearing is open to the public, so we anticipate that some public will be there. It's a small room, so you have to probably figure that out, how many people are allowed to sit in there. I'll put it on nextdoor.com website, which is a social media website, and let the people that also frequent that site to know that that also is a public hearing to watch. Some of the concerned residents within Ward 2 were concerned about this property on Lawson Avenue where there's going to be a liquor establishment going in. A resident in Steubenville who owns that building has filed for liquor permits, a D1, a D3, a D5, and a D6. D6 is Sunday sales. But the ones that I'm concerned about are on-premise consumption of alcohol permits. Maryland Market does not have on-premise consumption, and I'm not worried about that. Neither does the Pleasant Heights Market on top of Adams Street, nor do they serve on-premise consumption of alcohol. But this establishment, if it goes in, is going to be a concern to all the residents within the second ward and within the city of Steubenville. And another issue is it's going to really possibly put a big tax on our police department like it has in the past. We don't know how it's going to be run, but it's a big concern to a lot of residents. And residents really need to stand up and do something about this. And they actually can. Rather than keep asking the city administrative forces to do something about this, and they keep harping to do something about this. They've gone to public meetings, quarterly meetings offered by one of the U.S. senators, and they keep screaming, but they're not helpless. They can actually do something. And I propose that they get together. Mr. Bowling, I asked you a few weeks ago if you can get a group of people together so I can talk about this issue, where some people their hands are not tied. The city can do nuisance abatement, and the city's doing a local legislative authority objection to the issuance of these permits and these applications. But the city, the citizens in this ward, in this precinct, can bond together and put together on a ballot in November a local liquor option election, whereas the voters would have a say if they want that area in that ward to be wet or dry for on-premise consumption of alcohol. They filed, like I said, they filed for that to serve alcohol in a glass out of a beer bottle. And being a resident, I know what's happened in the past, and it has taxed our police department greatly with resources and finances that the city of Steubenville has to put forward this. So I appeal to you, Mr. Bowling, get the people and the powers to be together so this issue can be brought up and discussed. November's quite a ways away, but there are time deadlines to follow. There's one person that has to actually be in charge of everything. I don't want to be that person, but I do want to be that person to bring this to light, and that's going to be a petitioner. The petitioner's got to follow some state guidelines and meet certain deadlines for this to be put on the ballot. Other than a petitioner, there's going to be circulators, which actually take the petition door to door to residents in that ward, in that precinct, that are registered voters, to see if they would be willing to put that issue on the ballot, whether they're in favor of it or in opposition to it. And Mr. Bowling, I tell you to get the powers to be. There was one group on the hilltop, and I've got their last year's schedule. There's no public meetings on this schedule, so I've been sitting on this until this meeting would have taken place, but they have not had any public meetings scheduled. So again, I appeal for the community of the second ward to get together to seek to put a local liquor option petition together. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to City Council on city business? Please come forward, state their name and address. If not, I will ask the council chambers to be cleared and we will move into the executive session.